begin, I would like to acknowledge my co-researcher, Dr. Jyoti Sharma, and our supervisor, Professor Prasad, with whom this STEM education project was initially initiated before COVID-19. So following COVID-19, we continue to research the additional impacts COVID-19 has had on STEM teaching efficacy. So this is a work in progress research. So as you all know, the 2019 coronavirus outbreak has had a tremendous impact on the education sector, with over 800 million learners across the world being affected, which is about 48.7% of total enrolled learners, according to UNESCO. And large-scale social restrictions and health standards, such as physical distancing set by the governments as recommended by the World Health Organization, have completely altered teaching methods and pedagogies across schools in an attempt to provide continuing school education. So as a result of this, the expectations that are placed upon school teachers have increased manifold, with teachers having to rapidly adapt to changes. So on this map over here, you can see that Australia, for instance, has had partially open schools, which means that they have, teachers have been using the hybrid method of teaching involving both online as well as face-to-face classes. Whereas in countries such as India, you can see that schools have been completely closed due to COVID-19, which means that teachers have had to learn to entirely teach remotely. So to elaborate a little more on the problem, the sudden shift from traditional classroom teaching to an online or hybrid teaching approach presents an immense challenge to school teachers due to numerous factors, such as poor preparedness and unfamiliarity with technology, amongst others. In particular, STEM teachers are facing a greater challenge due to the added constraints involved in teaching complex concepts and simulating laboratory practicals online. So on this slide, there are two images. So one is a graph which shows you teachers that have been involved in distance learning during COVID. Now, as you can see, they've been utilizing, these are teachers worldwide that have utilized different ways to teach students during this pandemic, which includes paper-based or take-home materials, support through television or radio-based learning, mobile phone learning, as well as online learning or teaching. So you can see that they've had to learn, teachers had to learn numerous ways of teaching and engaging with their students. And the image on the right, obviously, is something that everybody can recognize. It's a Zoom session that a teacher is having with her class. So our current research and ongoing research is a comparative study assessing Australian and Indian STEM teachers' teaching challenges and perceptions, seeking to develop best practices and a framework in order to support and enhance STEM teaching in the current and post-pandemic classrooms. Coming to the methodology, we used the mixed methods approach for this research, which involved both quantitative and qualitative data collection. Using the survey method, we first gathered a wide range of data from over 200 schools across Australia and India. And by using the descriptive analysis approach, we were able to identify common as well as divergent patterns in STEM teacher perspectives and experiences. Now, as part of the qualitative study, we conducted a little over 25 audio recorded semi-structured interviews to gather detailed insights from STEM teachers across both countries. This method that we used for the analysis, the method that we used for the analysis was the interpretative phenomenological analysis approach, which allowed us to develop an in-depth understanding of the challenges, experiences, and opinions of teachers. The preliminary results of our ongoing research indicate that there is an increased pressure on STEM teachers to learn quickly and adapt to novel technologies and teaching solutions with hardly any preparation. And I'm saying preliminary results because, as I had mentioned earlier, this is an ongoing research. Therefore, we are only able to share the preliminary results with you at the moment. Secondly, teachers are expected to drastically adapt or alter their teaching pedagogies and practices to meet the new challenges and ensure effective and continued quality teaching. Thirdly, the delivery of complex STEM concepts through the hybrid or virtual classrooms, student assessments, and ensuring student engagement are major problems that teachers need support with. Lastly, the lack of teacher training and time to adapt to hybrid and online teaching are affecting the overall efficacy of STEM education delivery. In this in this diagram, this fishbone diagram, you can see the principal factors that are found to be affecting the efficacy of STEM teaching during COVID-19. So on the bottom, you can see 6 factors that are induced by COVID-19 specifically. And on the top right, you can see external factors that are affecting STEM teaching efficacy, which out of which some of them were already existent before the coronavirus outbreak. I'd now like to talk about the preliminary deductions. Once again, these are not finalized deductions, but a preliminary look at what we have understood and found from the preliminary results. So based on the analysis of our preliminary findings, a number of initial conclusions can be drawn. While COVID-19 has disrupted STEM education globally, developed countries such as Australia have showcased a better ability to cope with the pandemic due to the resources, infrastructure, and teachers' technology awareness. So in this slide, you can see that there is a table that compares certain features and how prepared or how 2 countries, Australia and India, have been able to cope with these different features. So 3 ticks mean a high capacity, 2 ticks mean medium capacity, and a 1 tick mean low capacity. So as you can see, the most affected areas, or the areas that need most attention, are the STEM teachers' acceptance of non-traditional teaching methods and the teacher training and psychosocial support during COVID-19 for both the countries. Of course, there are other areas as well, such as experience or upskilling in terms of knowledge of hybrid and online teaching approaches for both the countries that need improvement. But overall, this gives an idea of where there's a gap for each of the countries. So obviously, countries such as India, which currently has a really high number of COVID-19 cases, as well as a significant number of rural schools, face a greater challenge, thus affecting the efficacy of STEM teaching delivery at a larger scale compared to Australia. In such circumstances, young STEM teachers from urban schools and with a good understanding of technology usage are generally found to be at ease with the shift to online or hybrid teaching approaches compared to teachers from a more traditional or an older generation. And in the case of both countries, the older or more traditional teacher population seems to have been most impacted, requiring, as I had mentioned a little earlier, urgent training and upskilling to meet the needs of the current virtual classrooms and to uphold the quality of STEM education as we go forward. With that, we come to the conclusion. So, apart from the urgent upskilling needs, there is a need for other implementations, as recommended on this slide. It is equally essential to review and update the STEM pedagogy and teaching practices for a post-pandemic classroom by providing an early plan, resources, Psychosocial support, such as counseling and in-service training for teachers, especially to those that are working in rural schools or with limited to no knowledge of modern technology usage. Of course, there is a need to increase awareness around non-traditional teaching approaches, as well as provide additional resources in terms of pandemic preparedness, but also on how different teaching approaches can be utilized remotely. And last but not the least, it is also important to reassess compensation for teachers, as well as development opportunities for teachers, especially for those that are from rural schools. And to tell you a little bit about the future of our current research, as our comparative research progresses further, we hope to develop further understanding of the potential future repercussions of STEM school education, identify best practices and a framework in order to support and contribute towards the improvement of STEM teaching in the current and post-pandemic classrooms across Australia and India. So with that, we come to the end of my presentation. I would like to once again thank you, all of you, for your presence and your attention.